But that's not how Unity CEO thinks, you know. Last year, Unity CEO basically just called the whole game dev industry fucking idiots if they're not monetizing or not prioritizing their monetization. And this year, he basically went and said, hey, since you're not monetizing your game, or even if you are, I'll monetize your game for myself. That's basically what this whole statement is. It sounds pretty ridiculous, and it honestly, this whole thing is a little bit stupid. What's up? I'm setting up my game dev stream today, and I thought I'll start it with a banger. So I'm just going to be here for maybe half an hour, 1 hour, something. Not too much to talk about, except we're going to be talking about Unity's recent decision for a really fun thing, and a thought I had for what they're trying to do. And we'll see how that works out, you know? But I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing amazing, and I'm gonna begin. And I'll stop for questions at the end, most probably. So I have not prepared anything for this specifically. So it's going to be fun. Right. So Unity, a few days ago, made a fun plan, pricing plan change. They decided that they're not earning enough, and they want to get more money, whether for their own pockets or like they said, they might want to maintain Unity to make it better. We don't know what the intention behind it is, but I do have an idea of what they're targeting. It's still just a conjecture, and I'll come back to it at the end. It's just a theory, but you know, with some proof, it does make sense to me. I'm not sure if it's going to make sense to you guys. And I hope, though I do hope it does. And if you have any comments on it, please feel free to go ahead with it. Right, so 12th of September. So now, 2 days from now, don't know how many days since when this video goes up. They decided that other than their current plans for whatever free, pro, enterprise, and everything is, they're going to have a runtime, that's what they're calling it, runtime plan pricing and packaging update, where if you scroll down to there, if you generate a revenue above 200,000, or you have installs on the application above 200,000, if you are a free user, or on pro or enterprise where the number becomes 1 million, you have to pay a certain fee. Now, generally with something like this exists with Unreal Engine, but that is only with revenue, and that is a percentage of revenue that you generate. It has nothing to do with install, so that has been a very weird thing for the whole industry. And what they're saying is that if you're doing free, you have to pay 20 cents per install, which means if a game got deleted, you're installing it again, the devs have to pay 20 more cents. This is not for the players paying it, it's the devs or the publishers that have to pay. And then on the pro and enterprise versions, there is a little bit of structure that they've given, that if it's up to 100,000, you pay 0.15. If it's 100 to 500,000, 0.75, and so on. But the point is that they don't want one-time fee, or they don't want a part in the revenue. They want to have an ongoing revenue stream, which, not just my opinion, but of many people in the industry, is a very aggressive move to do. Because first what they said was that this is going to retroactively apply, and if that happened, pretty much like a lot of companies would go bankrupt immediately because of how many installs have happened. And but then they said somewhere that it's not going to happen, but I'm not really sure about that. Now the problem is installs or whatever. The second problem comes in with is that, like, how are you exactly tracking the installs? They haven't yet given any clear news. The only thing I can say, the only way this can actually happen is if every game that is going to get installed has an internet connection now, or the installer has the internet connection, and when you install, they basically track it, which is going to be a really bad thing because that means that no game is truly offline anymore, which from Unity's point of view. Or basically what that's going to do is Unity would still want to track the offline games, right? Fully offline games. But what they're going to force their devs to do is, hey, how about that every game that you're making with Unity, you need to have internet connection either to the installer or something so they can track it one way or another, which is a really bad thing. We still don't think where it's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. Now, a funny situation to me on this one is like game dev is always split between people who want to heavily monetize game and people who want to monetize game to the point where they can sustain from either only sales or maybe they want to add some more things. But that's not how Unity's CEO thinks, you know. Last year, Unity CEO basically just called the whole game dev industry fucking idiots if they're not monetizing or not prioritizing their monetization. And this year, he basically went and said, hey, since you're not monetizing your game, or even if you are, I'll monetize your game for myself. That's basically what this whole statement is. It sounds pretty ridiculous, and it honestly, this whole thing is a little bit stupid. And then, of course, the whole Twitter went in shock, and there have been a lot of conversations. Most of conversations were like, okay, how are they doing that? Who is it going to impact, and so on. Some of the most prevalent questions were, what happens, let's say, to services like Game Pass? Because Game Pass is owned by Microsoft, devs have published on to their Game Pass is giving it away, and they're just giving a subscription cost, right? Whoever is playing, but the downloads and installs can be in millions or whatever the hell, like whatever happens. And yeah, how does it trigger? Where does it trigger? Retroactively? How do you track all of this? So these have been questions on everyone's mind, and they decided to rush the answer. By the way, they immediately went out and say what it's going to happen, right? So we're going to go through that. First of all, they're saying why it matters. So the fees which Unity said are essential for funding development of its tech left many game makers wondering if having a hit game through Unity would cost them more money than they could make, which is a concern. The runtime fee announced Tuesday morning is tied to players' installation of a game, an action that previously didn't cost developers anything. This has never happened before. There is no precedence for this. It is insanely bad. That's how awful it is. Yes, but game developers began fuming immediately that any game enjoying a spike in installation due to a big sale, or inclusion in a charity bundle, or even just by including in a popular subscription service like Microsoft's Game Pass, would trigger back-breaking Unity fee immediately, because Game Pass is an insane thing. You don't have to pay other than what, and people just try games, right? I'm going to go in, I'm going to try in. Even Steam doesn't have that bad policies. Like Steam says like, hey, you've purchased a game, you've played it for a few hours, you don't like it, give it back. They're going to fully refund it without asking. So Unity is taking the step which is just bad. The intrigue, Unity has scrambled to clarify, and in one key case, alter what it has said about its policies around the fees, right? So I'm not even sure what this one is. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about it much, but this is what, was it this one? Oh no. So this is what basically Unity guys are saying. Runtime fees will also not, okay, wait, zoom in. After initially telling Axios, wherever I'm reading it from, earlier Tuesday that a player installing a game, deleting it and installing it again would result in multiple fees, Unity's Witten told Axios that the company would actually only charge for an initial install. Another tracking that's going to come in. We don't know how they're going to track it. We don't know how we are going to track it. We don't know anything about it. Other than that, they're now promising something that God knows. And I wouldn't trust a company that big. Kind of lost that over the last decade. He hoped this would LF years of install bombing, where an angry user could keep deleting and reinstalling a game to rack up fees to punish a developer. I mean, it's a possible thing. We already see review bombs, so install bombing is gonna potentially become a new thing. You go on Game Pass, you get a Game Pass, and then you just spam them. But an extra fees will be charged if the user installs a game on second device, say a Steam Deck, after installing a game on PC, which means that let's talk about consoles as well, right? Which means that they are going to have some form of tracking API, potentially, which is going to give them data. There's the data concern now as well that is coming out of it, from my point of view at least. So between the lines, runtime fees will also not be charged for installing game demos, written said, unless the demo is part of a download or that includes the full game. Early access games would be charged for an installation, he noted. Games offered for charity or included in charity will be exempt from the fees. Unity will provide a way for developers to inform Unity that their game are being offered that way. Now, the problem is that they should have thought out, like, this is such a big decision. This is not something like, you know, you're telling your friend that you're going to go buy candy, a new candy that came out. That's not what this is. This is, this is defining what the future of game dev is going to be like with Unity. And they just gave one of the most immature, like they posted it in the most immature way that they could. You need to detail this thing out. And this is almost as bad as what was happening with Wizards of the Coast and TTRPG stuff like a few months ago. It was awful. This is awful. There is no way this can satisfy anyone. I don't think who thought that this is going to happen. But so as for Game Pass and other subscription services, Witten said that developers like AgroCrab would not be on the hook, as the fees are charged to distributors, which in the Game Pass example would be Microsoft. Do you think Microsoft wants to pay additional fees to Unity? This is like, this just feels like lawsuits are about to happen. Netflix is getting on to games as a service things as well. Game Pass has been pretty massive. Then we are talking about, other than Nintendo, a lot of like Nintendo properties are made on Unity. We're also talking about PlayStation Plus stuff. There is so much that they're gonna screw over. 20-cent, like because the thing is, it's dependent on what version of Unity that the devs used is how the charging and stuff is going to happen. Even if they reduce it, this is eventually like this. There's a chance eventually this is going to go into negatives. So you buy a game for 10 and you're paying 14 for it because developer is paying 14 for it because of downloads. You know. So the profits on the developer and publisher, that is basically removing, and the dynamic between the publisher and the developers are going to get fucked over if this goes through. Sorry for the crude language, but that's what it is, you know. Because now the publishers are going to be thinking that, okay, if I take a 60% cut from this one because I've invested into it now, and then we are going to pay for every install, let's say 1 million cells and 1 million to what was it? Let's say even in the best case, it is. So I think this is still going to go from tiers, right? It's going to till 100, it's going to do this, then this, then this. If you do 1 million sales and post million this applies, that is so much more money taken from the game, which means what Unity is actually saying is stupid, because publishers are never going to take that profit away, give that away. They are going to charge the developer. I'm sorry to say that, but that's how most of the publishers work. I'm not saying all because I haven't worked with all, but at least with the things that I've seen, that as a publisher is always going to try to push the costs towards the devs. And then the dev, like depending on the contract, the dev might actually get the last chunk of profit. Runtime fee will also not be charged for installing installations of game demos within set unless the demo is part of the blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't matter. What they're saying, our core point with this is simply to make sure that we have the right value exchange so that we can continue to invest in our fundamental mission to make sure that we can deliver the best tools for the people to make great games. I think that's bullshit. There were potentially so many better ways to do this. And they just chose one of the worst ways to do that. It's all like, whatever you say, the thing is that that's not what the intention shows, right? They're going to be doing a lot of damage control over time, and I think it's only fair for the damage to happen because that's what they did. Finally, they also say that Witten estimates that only about 10% of Unity developers will wind up having to pay any fee when the threshold games need to hit. It's a very bad statement. 10% of how many games are we talking about? Are we talking about 10, 20 million games there? Because that would be a huge number, right? But also, where did that figure come from? The thing is, like, those figures are never true. We might have a higher number, lower number, and we might have a higher quantity where most of the games are irrelevant, but some of them are, right? So, yeah, just generally people going through. And I am going to get to the point. I am going to get to the point why this point matters, why the 10% matters, and what my assumption is. So, Rami Ismail also going about it. Imagine making what easily seems the worst business decision in the history of the video game and then telling the hyper-specialized industry expert whose work you're threatening to wreck that they're confused before simply repeating every single claim you're being dragged for. That's how companies operate. That's how CEOs operate. They feel like they don't have a lack of emotion, or they've just gotten so used to saying lies that they don't even feel like it's a lie anymore. It's like, why does it affect you, right? Why does it? So yeah, I don't want to go through a lot of things, but the matter of fact is a lot of companies are worried right now because their livelihood is being, what they build over last decade or something, they're all getting impacted. So it's awful, and I think like Freya is one of the people I follow quite a lot to listen to her for speaking math, and yeah. Violently bad timing Unity, I swear to God I'm losing it. What is and then they get the message for AI datasets. It's all awful. Aggro Crab, one of the wait, I don't think it was, oh yeah, it was this one. So Megacrit, Aggro Crab, so many more indie companies who literally are just there. They're just trying to say that, hey guys, this is not good. This is not okay. What's going to happen is people are going to move away from that. Right. So what was my point? The thing I'm assuming reading like these specific things, I don't think that the indie game dev side, like people who push games on consoles, PCs, and so on, I feel like they're just getting dragged into this because they want to target a very different market. And that market is not PC consoles. I believe that market is the mobile market. Since the early days in the game dev when I started out, asset flipping and ad-based games, so basically mobile and live service games, those are the two categories I think they're targeting fully. Because on mobile, the number of downloads, the number of installs, and so on, those things are already being tracked by Play Store, by a bunch of, and I think they saw the numbers, and they were like, ooh, you know what? They're earning from the ads and stuff like that. How about we earn from that as well? Now remember, the CEO of Unity came from EA, and they were also specializing in loot boxes and stuff like that. So they're very interested in making money in that specific way. I also believe that the statement they made, it might have been an intentional way of making the worst statement to get attention and then move towards that. It might be. It's just still a theory. I'm not sure. But what I'm saying is there is some data to at least support that. One thing is the number that they're saying that 10% of all Unity developers, 10% of Unity developers will have to pay, right? that 10% might be not targeting any of the most of the PC and console market. It might mostly be targeting the mobile market, and we're not even talking about that fact, because out of everything that we've gone, or at least what I've come through, I might have missed quite a lot of news because it is a pretty big one. We're not yet taking into account the market for mobiles, because there is so much asset flipping happens. There is so many games that are being made on daily basis. That market is huge, and I believe that is what they're trying to hit towards, because games revenue on the mobile market, Play Store, iOS, that is all insane. And you can see the growth that is basically happening. And what I was trying to find is actually an accurate number for this, which I might actually go towards coming back towards. But let's remember, there was an increase when the epidemic started. There was an intense increase in the number of games on market. And you have to keep in mind that most of the mobile games on iOS and Android, they're all made in Unity. Most of them are, not all. Most of them are made in Unity. And I think that's what they actually want to target and get money out of. And but like, of course, it just like, if they can get it from everyone, amazing. So they just made this general claim where they're like, and we're focusing on the PC console side, but I think the reason why it's happening is because of the mobile market existing and how big it has become and how many downloads happen. Every game, we see millions of downloads, and that easily hits it. Even the trashiest game does that. I'm not against them. I think anyone who wants to make the game in any ways is all good, but I believe that's what they're trying to target, and I think that's what we are missing out, right? Because I think there was a really nice number that we were talking about. So we are talking about report draws on fresh original data from the 230,000 developers who make and operate over 750,000 games using Unity engine and the Unity gaming service portfolio of products. Most of these games are mobile games. And I think that's what they're going towards and targeting. And it is the shittiest move, because they're dragging in so many. I think they could have done this in such a better way and such an amazing thing, but yeah, they're definitely going for that, and everyone is getting dragged into it. It's very sad, and it's very unfortunate, because so many devs that I love, including people who made Vampire Survivors, Ori and the Blind Forest, we're talking about some of the most amazing devs, and they're all getting dragged just because of a decision of a corporate, because they do not understand, or at least they don't want to understand the business on a personal level, right? But yeah, that is my theory, mostly. That yes, while the PC and console gamers and some of the best studios got dragged into this, they probably saw the charts for mobile and they were like, hey, why are we not earning from it? Because they're earning from live services. Every day they post, every ad they see, every click people do, every microtransaction that happens, and so why are we not getting more out of it? And I think this is the result of that. I hope it doesn't come to pass, because this would set one of the worst precedences in the gaming industry for two reasons. If it retroactively, so there was one case on the open source as well. I'm wondering if it was OpenAI or it was something else, where this company was trying to take back their open source rights retroactively. I'm pretty sure that case failed. And this is now the second attempt to bring in something, present something retroactively. Legally, if a precedence like this sets up, any company will be able to go and retroactively change their contracts, which means if you've done anything in 2010, the new contract is going to impact that as well. We don't want that in any specific way. So I'm really hoping this doesn't go that bad. On the good news, I think Epic is going to get more traction, because just yesterday or something, they basically announced that if you leave your game exclusively on the Epic Store, you get to keep 100% of your revenue. It's not even 88-12 split anymore. So there's that. But yeah, no, Cosmic Emotion, welcome to the chat, man. And yeah, I completely agree. Unity is insane. This is such a harsh move. Right now, I think most of the devs are one thing I believe is that they're going to make a different statement, which is going to feel better, but it's just going to feel better in relation to what we have right now. It is not going to be a good statement anyways. Just that, yeah, this payment structure is shit. When Epic Games started, when Unreal Engine 4 was going on, they had a subscription fees and stuff like that, and they removed that completely and so on. They've been growing continuously because they've been moving towards they're helping themselves. On Linux, Proton creates a new machine for every reinstall. They're still charging reinstalls and no one knows about it. Yeah. So there is so many caveats that we have not even dealt with yet. Like, for example, we haven't yet been talking about the mobile market, what I was mentioning right now, or at least I haven't seen yet. So all of those installs are going to be talking about from the it's not this guy, but Wit and whoever was responding, right? That person was saying that, oh, if you're on Game Pass, kind of like of a service, you developer will not have to pay. The Microsoft will have to pay because, it's under them. But Microsoft is the publisher. They want to make deals which give them profits. But if on this deal, every time my game get installed, if I've made it on Unity, they have to pay 20 cents or even 0.015 cents. Do you not think that Microsoft is going to charge me as a dev? They have power over the contract, right? Because as a dev, I will be getting the last bit of money that is remaining, whatever we agreed upon. And now this is going to get into the contract as well. This is whatever their response was, whatever this is, they're both awful. And I'm really hoping that this doesn't go pass for one more reason, and that is if Unity dies for whatever reason, Unreal Engine is not going to have a competitor. And if there is no competition, they can do whatever they want. Now, Unreal has had Epic Games have a really good track record, and I want them to keep it, but I still fear that if we lose, if Unreal Engine loses all competition, then we might be seeing some bad decisions by that side as well, because there's nothing to challenge them. So yeah, that was basically everything I wanted to say. So what are your guys' thoughts?